Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. And I'm back with Coach's Corner, our Friday edition of the podcast, baby. I'm really excited to come to you. I got a great topic today. I'm going to talk about the three most important aspects to teaching the number one job skill for our athletes. So what is that number one job skill? And as you maybe clicked on this episode, you're kind of wondering what that is. And so with AI booming, and AI is going to take so many different jobs mostly that require no thinking in terms of like, I can code this and then I can upload it, right? The number one asset that humans are always going to have over AI is this. We are always going to have ourselves, and we're always going to be able to problem solve at a different level than I think the computers ever will be able to. And we could dive into the analytics era and some of the other things in terms of sports that I feel like, robots and AI don't get right. But that's a whole nother, honestly, episode and podcast for another day. So let's dive into the three aspects of how to teach our young athletes to problem solve. But before we get into that, I want to share a story. Last week, I had the opportunity to play some pickup basketball. I went home, I visited my parents, I got to see some old friends. It was great. Got to connect and play some basketball with some old friends, right? And I'm getting to play some pickup basketball, and I'm playing with one of these. He's an athlete. He just graduated high school, very talented, probably one of the more talented players that have come out of, Arcata High School, where I am from. So one of the things that I noticed immediately off the bat, right? This is pickup basketball. I'm not playing no AAU basketball. Like, I'm just playing pickup basketball with my friends and some other random people that I have no idea who they are. Keep in mind, the competition level is average, right? It's honestly probably below average. But his parents are in the stands yelling at him the entire game, coaching him up. And every time he makes a mistake or misses a shot, his eyes just dart up to his parents. And I'm like, what are we teaching our athletes? Because I've seen so many other athletes that are like this. Like, I've worked with a ton of other parents that have similar kind of basically similar, kind of, I guess, parenting styles. And I'm not here to sit here and say and tell people how to parent, because number one, I don't have a kid. I'm just noticing, this is what I notice, and I want to give out suggestions for the coaches and parents that are listening, because it is imperative for us to teach our young athletes how to solve their own problems. That's one of the biggest things that I see, honestly, not even just on the basketball court, just like with kids in general, because I've got the opportunity to substitute teach, and they look for answers, right? There's so many answers, right? And I even, I'm a little bit guilty of this as well, right? We can Google pretty much anything, but we overcoach, we overparent, and I even overcoach sometimes, right? We always give the answers. Well, we need to flip that. And so the number one thing to help our athletes become better problem solvers, we got to stop giving nonstop advice. Stop. We're not letting them gain the skills to solve their own problems if we always give them the answer. If we always say, hey, pass over here, pass wing, drive to the basket, oh, cut here, right? And it's really hard because we see, we've been through, certain experiences. A lot of them are very similar, but honestly, their experiences are different. And so that leads me to number two, which is just ask questions. And it's just literally just flip it on the head. And a lot of times you can give advice after you ask the question, but you need to ask the question first. So what do I mean by asking questions? So let's say, I have an athlete, I'm working with an athlete, it's an athlete that I trained, I go and watch his game. And, like he has maybe a bad game shooting that night. I can be like, oh, you did this wrong, you're taking bad shot selection, your feet weren't set, blah, 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 blah. I can give him the answers right away. Or I can ask a question. Hey, let's call him Alex. Hey, Alex, I noticed that, you maybe didn't have the best shooting night. Why do you think that is? So just asking them and creating that curiosity, right? And then they have to start, the self-reflection process of, and they may not know in that moment in time. And that's fine, because the best thing is we actually are planting seeds. They may think about it overnight. They may give you some, not great answer at the time, but if we're planting the seed in their head, like, oh, I'm watching you, I'm recognizing that you maybe didn't have a great game, and then they start to think, oh, maybe my feet weren't set. Oh, maybe it was bad shot selection. Maybe I was forcing, a couple shots here and there. Maybe just an off night. I felt like I had rhythm and the shots didn't fall. Like, that's definitely an answer too. So I think that's really important, is to ask those questions, right? Ask how they can get better. Ask, what are your priorities? Where do you see fit? And then, if they're a little bit off, then that's when we can come in as the mentors, the parents, the coaches, and give guidance. We can be like, hey, I know that you want to become a 3-point specialist, but I know that your varsity coach, he wants you to play inside, and you need to make sure that if you want more play time, you need to be proficient around the basket. So that needs to be your priority, right? And that's why I say don't stop giving advice, period. It's just stop giving nonstop advice all the time. And then my last tip is really simple. At the end of the day, we can have conversations, we can give guidance, but our athletes need to make the final decision, right? They need to make their final decision on whether, what high school they want to go to, what college they want to go to, what camps they want to go to. They have to make the final decision. We can't make everything for them, because what's going to happen is when they get into the real world beyond the game, they're not going to have the skills to make that happen. And it's really unfortunate to watch a lot of young athletes dart and look at their coaches and look at their parents, and yeah, you're going to make a mistake. So what? So how are we teaching how to solve their own problems, how to bounce back from mistakes, bounce back from bad games? How are we teaching them to become their own problem solvers? That is what I am really curious about. And I'm wondering, and I'll ask the question, and feel free to reach out to me on IG, Coach Furtado. What do you think athletes do best when we ask them to solve problems? So I will reframe that question. How can we make sure that athletes are solving their own problems? I don't know what sport you coach. I don't know what age and level, right? A lot of what I've kind of shared is definitely targeted maybe more so to the high school age, because that's predominantly the age I work with. But I think, even at a younger age, right? I've coached young teams, and I feel like at that age, as a parent, you have even more influence over your kids. So how you parent actually is even more important. So just ask. And it is harder when they're younger because they don't have the same critical thinking skills, but there's never too young of an age that you can start to work on those critical thinking skills, because at the end of the day, right, Bridging Impact is committed to transforming leaders on and off the court, and, transferring wisdom that goes beyond the game. Because at the end of the day, only 1% of people play professionally out of all the people that play in high school. So I don't even know if it's that high of a percent. It's probably lower than that. And that's like making a living. So all of us are going to end up getting jobs. Maybe they start a little podcast, maybe they get into coaching, whatever it ends up being. We need to teach them those life skills of how to solve their own problems. That's the number one skill, in my opinion, that I think athletes and I think people are going to need beyond, these 2020 years, when we have AI is booming. It's going to take jobs. I don't know all about it, but I know it's going to take jobs. So you're either going to become a problem solver and learn how to use it as a tool, or AI is going to end up using you and taking your job. So what is your choice? And I hate to say it, but that's kind of the truth. So keeping it real. Hey, make sure you subscribe to the channel, Coach Furtado TV, if you're watching on YouTube, or give us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you give us a review, I'll give you a shout out here on Coach's Corner. I'm actually going to take a pause. Again, haven't been as consistent as I want this summer, but I'm actually moving places here in LA, and I'm really excited about that, because it's got a lot of great opportunities for me to expand the business. So with that, I appreciate everyone for taking time out of their day to listen to this, share it with a friend, and hey, I'll be in your eyes and ears, not this week, not next week, but the third week in August. Have a great rest of your summer, and I will, be back soon, baby. Connect with me on IG. I'll still be there. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Cheers, y'all.